that was how I met you, dude, was just kind of like screaming out into this ether and inviting other people to come and have a conversation for this shit, you know?
I'm so glad that we met. Look where we're at now. And look where we're going. The podcast is called The Amanita Effect. When did Amanita come in, and what was that like?
So the Amanita came in with, it was actually, you know, as you know, Renee, who found my content online, reached out to me on behalf of the company. I had heard about Amanita. I researched it. It was one of those ones in my back pocket. And I've told you this about other substances before. Like, I would like to try that one, but like, it's going to happen when the time is right. Like, the universe is going to bring it to me. And that's happened multiple times with all these various things. And Amanita was one of those ones of like, I feel like there's something to this. I think I'm going to like to try this at one point. Josh had actually told me about some of his experiences and stuff like that in the past. And I consumed some of Dreamer's content actually, and was finding it massively interesting. And it was right around the time my TikTok started to blow up a little bit. You guys found me. Renee reached out, and when Renee reached out and told me about, you know, the company, I was like, oh shit, like I've already heard about you guys before, and it's on the Amanita Reddit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you guys seem to have a good reputation. So, you know, Renee sent me some of the product and stuff like that to try. The first time that I tried it, I tried some of the Amanita gummies, and I felt them, and I was like, okay, like, so, you know, something to the Amanita thing, but it wasn't a super pronounced experience, but I did sleep very well, and I already kind of saw it as like, okay, this is an interesting tool. But then I made my first tea, and I had one of my like first higher doses experience.
Do you remember how much you brewed?
It was 10 grams. Yeah, that was that was my first higher dose experience. It was with Muscaria, so 10 grams, Amanita and Muscaria. Right at this time that I started working with you guys and trying Amanita and had access to good Amanita was the time that I decided that I wanted to quit cannabis. And I tried this before in the past, and I had quite literally, since I started consuming cannabis regularly at the age of 14, I had never been able to, except the times that I was starting in jail, able to physically break that physiological cycle within myself. The furthest I would get, I remember the furthest I got was like at like 18 years old for about 3 days. And it just, I gave in, you know, and I started consuming regularly again. I've wanted to try Amanita for a while on the back burner. It just got brought into my life in this crazy, beautiful way. You know what I'm saying? It seems really, really cool and efficacious. And also like, oh, I've been thinking about quitting cannabis for a while and wanting to try that again. But I knew like staring down that sort of 14 days of whatever it is where I'm not sleeping, where I can't eat, I didn't know if I could do it. But I once I had the Amanita and like started utilizing that as a tool, it really like, it seemed to me like it was going to be an interesting tool in a lot of ways. But I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I even expressed this, they've expressed this to you before, brother. Like a big impotence for me right in the beginning was like, I can utilize this as a tool to like not have to smoke weed every day. Or like if I do want to quit weed, like this, I feel like this is going to give me a better shot to be able to fucking like sleep at night. You know what I'm saying? And, like using this.
Yeah.
And that was the first time in my life in which I went several months, like, and I broke that physiological cycle. Honestly, I credit a lot of it to the use of Amanita. And I do think there was more to it than just the use of Amanita. I think like I had, you know, maybe grown a little bit wiser in things as a person, or built a better sort of reality around me. That was like really how it first became like this really kind of important thing within my tool belt, if you will. I would say like the next place that it really fell into my life in this like really important way was, and I think like I really started experimenting with this in part because I was working with the company, but through conversations with you and stuff like that, and understanding the mushroom more and trying it myself. I have tried, I can't tell you how many different substances since I was 17 years old, trying to unlock better cognitions, if you know what I'm saying, like better flow state. And so I started taking some raw Amanita and trying that as a nootropic. And like, still to this day, dude, besides maybe kratom, which kratom is one of those ones where it's just got such a trade-off, it can't be a regular kind of staple in life.
Yep.
Maybe once every 2 weeks or something like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I could, and I'm okay with that. Like spiritually, energetically, I don't feel guilty about like, but if I get more than like once every 2 weeks, once a week or something like that with kratom, dude, I'm too well aware of like the physiological trade-off that I'm making regardless of what I'm telling myself. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But Amanita seemed to offer in a lot of ways this ability to sort of live with it, you know, and it's not that like I think it comes without any potential downsides. We absolutely don't try and like convey that within our marketing or anything like that with the company. We're very transparent about like, I think you could have a problem with Amanita as well too if you're taking 40 grams to sleep every single night, you know, shit like that. But Amanita seems to really present itself in this way of like, oh, you can take this close to every day. It looks like a lot of people are, and it looks like it has this sort of adaptogenic effect in helping your body kind of like reharmonize and stay within harmony in this really interesting way. And so it kind of started this pattern for me of microdosing it. This, you know, we talk a lot about like a different kind of microdose. Yeah, that to me, Amanita, maybe about somewhere between one, and it depends on the day, and like I'll redose sometimes a little bit, but somewhere between like 1 to 3 grams raw Amanita like throughout the day is probably the most potent nootropic that I've ever found in the entire world. Something I kind of left out about my childhood story was that at the age of 15, my parents were really, really concerned with me, and I was consuming a lot of cannabis. And they found out I was like punished and grounded, and they took me to this therapist, and this therapist met with me twice. And I don't even know if we talked about my dad once, dude, but goddamn it, I was on Adderall after 2 meetings with this therapist. You know what I'm saying? That was the solution. So I got put on Adderall for a little bit in high school, and there's a lot of people talk about like ADD, ADHD within this particular country, and I do think there's like some validity to that, man. But like when I hear about an ADHD and like a little boy, there's something in me that spikes angry, because it's like, I know it's like this particular little boy that you're talking about, almost no matter who it is, about, I bet north of 90% of them, if you were just take them out in the woods and let them exert some of their fucking energy.
For sure.
And so I was one of these kids that from a very young age was labeled ADD, and then labeled ADD through high school. And then I was on Adderall for a couple of years until I was like, fuck this shit. You know, they didn't like the trade-off that I was making with my body, and started to learn more about like what it was actually doing to me and becoming more self-aware of all these things. And I really rejected the whole Adderall prescription medication. But like I described, it was right around the time that I quit taking Adderall, I went on this long journey of trying to find some sort of like efficacious cognitive enhancer. And there is some things that I found along the way. I think like fish oil, exercise, like there's a really important matrix that goes around this cognitive function, memory recall, ability to focus, get in a flow state, to work, things like that. You know, and I think that exercise, meditation, fish oil, all these things are just as an important part of the matrix for me. But dude, like I'll be damned, like 1.5 grams of some Amanita, like is, and Josh kind of like he has a similar path to me in terms of he was heavily medicated as a kid for ADHD, has tested a lot of different things, and he's fallen into this place as a grown ass man where he knows he's like a little bit of Amanita in the morning for me is the best sort of quote unquote ADD, you know, medicine. And so, yeah, at first with Amanita, it started as this really powerful tool to help me kind of get over this addiction and start to utilize that as a tool within that. And then also it kind of became a nootropic as well too. And then I started taking higher dose Amanita experiences and doses. And this to me, like, something you've said before that like I have a hard time articulating to people, but there is something to this, and like I want us to go into this a little bit, but this increase in synchronicity when you start consuming Amanita.
Yep.
Okay, and like I think this can happen at just about any sort of connection with that particular spirit. There's just certain like Christ energy infused in this fucking in that mushroom. I think you can tap into it in a lot of different ways, but it really started to kind of become prevalent. It's not like in my life when I started to take the larger doses. I'm going to try to articulate this a bit, but I'm going to struggle, and we're probably going to go back and forth here a little bit. But a similar thing sort of happened to me when I had some of my first larger dissociative experiences, like with ketamine. It felt as if though, and I think people can lose themselves to this a bit, but I think there's something very true and mystical and prevalent about this. It felt as if though I was able to start listening to these universal whispers as like easier, and hearing to them and noticing them more. And I think, and then when I look back on it in hindsight, it's like the universe has been whispering to me since I was like a little boy. So just for a very long time, I either like wasn't paying attention, or the universe had to fucking scream at me, you know what I'm saying, for me to get to pay attention.
It starts as a whisper, yeah.
Yeah, and there's something about the high dose Amanita experiences that started to feel like I really got in tune with this certain sort of spirit, and hearing these whispers a lot and things like that. And then also, dude, like there is this sort of afterglow that has been reported by, that's almost universally reported with like most sort of dissociative anesthetics, you know, like DXM, PCP, ketamine. A really, really large dose of Amanita. The next day I might be a little bit heavy and tired or something like that, but there is this like actual kind of afterglow that I've experienced with that as well too, in combination with there is this really interesting pocket or sliver of the universe within the experience that it gives me access to. And that's a lot different than ketamine, but this double-edged sword thing that I'm talking about here, like this duality, this matrix it's providing you, reminds you quite a bit of ketamine. This headspace where you can kind of do some internal work and see some of these things, and maybe reassociate with traumas and memory and stuff like that, in combination with this sort of physiological, energetic cleaning, you know, that it kind of feels like it can have. The increase in synchronicities, this headspace it was offering with the higher doses. And dude, like the dreams I started having and like have had since then, Amanita permanently changed my dreams, I think. You know what I'm saying? Like I've had dreams that's my entire life. I've never been a huge dreamer, even when I was a little kid. Definitely, it feels as if though, and maybe this is just the way in which I'm associating with them now that has changed it, but it seems as if though my dreams are more meaningful. And a lot of these really, really deep Amanita dreams have been super symbolic and super meaningful. And I'm sure that as a little child, I had meaningful symbolic dreams as well too. Maybe I just wasn't adhering to it and listening to those whispers in the sort of way. But yeah, this access to the dream world as well too. And so like, I've gone on a really fucking long tangent now about my particular relationship with Amanita, but that's because like it does seem to, at least within my own personal experience and other people that I've talked to, lend itself to a variety of different use cases.